everybody, and welcome to this episode of the CCC Digital Brief with Mark O'Loughlin and the Cloud Credential Council. Now, in this series of the CCC Digital Brief, I am asking global digital experts to comment on the impact that COVID-19 is having on organizations and how digital technologies and services can help. Now, on today's CCC Digital Brief, we're joined by Marcel Foederer. Marcel is Master Trainer at ITpreneurs based in the Netherlands. Now, Marcel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a big pleasure to join this session and to deal with your challenging questions, I guess.
Challenging questions have come because of challenging times indeed. Now, Marcel, to start with, can you tell us what industry do you work in?
I work as, my primary role is Master Trainer in the service management area, so IT service management. My background is also consultancy and line management roles, but over the last years that I work for ITpreneurs in the Netherlands, I deliver training courses on a worldwide scale. I'm involved in developing the course materials and maintaining the course materials, and also helping our partner trainers to become ready for their deliveries. And when you look to the COVID-19 situation, I also helped many partners in switching from the normal traditional classroom deliveries to virtual deliveries and blended deliveries.
Great, fantastic. We'll look at that in a few minutes because I'd be interested in some areas you've looked at to try and help organizations with that. But before we do, I mean, the key question at the moment, so you're in the training, the learning, development space. How has COVID-19 affected the delivery of these training services to meet customers' needs from both the training side but also the customer side, because you can represent both and see both?
Of course, as in many other industries, it is hitting our industry also very hard. And because we are, let's say, a primary courseware provider, we are not a training company, so we make the lives of the training companies easier. But because the customers of these training companies, they also are dealing with the consequences of COVID-19. So it highly depends on how mature our training partners were in switching easily and quickly to virtual deliveries, because the biggest impact that it was that normal traditional classroom deliveries, that is not possible anymore due to the social distancing policies, etc. So one partner, for example, for him it was quite easy to switch to virtual deliveries because they already did a number of training courses delivery virtual, but for many others it was having quite a big impact. And someday it went relatively fast to move to virtual deliveries, and others they are still struggling, and also because the demand is less. So also when you look to our training partners, they have less business compared to the situation before COVID-19. But hopefully, it will return to normal levels soon.
That's a few interesting points there. One is obviously the big hit to revenue. We'll probably come back to that in a moment because we will ask what is normal times. For some of those, now, in theory, you would think switching from a class to a virtual delivery should be easy. Same materials, same objectives, this kind of thing. But how did, or in just general terms, how were a number of those organizations finding it difficult? What were the challenges that they're facing to move into virtual delivery?
I think in general, it's the fear for the unknown. It's a new area, and many people are afraid to make steps out of their comfort zone. That's actually the biggest challenge for many people. But after they made that step to start delivering virtual courses, then they realize, hey, actually it went quite well. It is not so difficult as I thought it would be. And so after they make that step, they feel more and more confident. It requires, you can say it's more or less the same, but it requires some, some small different approaches. I can go into the details if you want, but we can also discuss that separately. But you need to take certain aspects into consideration to make the virtual delivery also a success. So,
Yes.
for
Yes.
example, you cannot look each other into the eyes. Yeah, you can switch cameras on, but still it's different. So the level of engagement is a bigger challenge for the trainer. You know, in a normal classroom, it's not so difficult to keep the students engaged, but in a virtual delivery, you cannot see what they are doing. In the meantime, maybe they manage their emails or they do other things.
Yes,
You
the
don't
distraction.
you don't see it.
Yeah,
So the
distraction creeps in. Can I ask, Marcel, sorry to interrupt there. Can I ask, we could do a whole session on, and we probably will, on all the tips and tricks you can do. Is there
yeah.
one major tip that you could give organizations listening today how to, how to deliver an engaging virtual delivery that keeps their delegates engaged? If there was one key tip to share, what would
Yeah,
that
I
be?
think the biggest tip, or the best tip I can give is communicate back and forth. So as a trainer, you should ask um, much more questions, even much more questions than you already do in a normal classroom delivery. Via asking open questions, you keep everybody engaged. And
Yes,
related to asking questions, I just count the number of questions that I ask to whom in the class, and I just I just count the number of questions that, for example, John is asking or Barbara is asking, or so
yes,
I get an overview who is actively involved in the delivery and also who are the more silent types. I just use a simple
yes,
piece of
yes.
paper and I just plot who is asking how many questions. So I get an impression who are the silent types, and I'm going to address questions to the more silent types in the
Very,
calls.
very good, Marcel. So you're telling me there a fantastic tip. We're going to reiterate that. But your tool is a piece of paper with the delegates' names written on it and a
Yeah,
score of how many times they're interacting back with you.
exactly.
I think that's really good, and I think it's just so simple. It can be so missed so easily. But I think
Yes,
it's telling you as the trainer, as the instructor, then who is attentive and who needs to be brought into the conversation more because they're probably drifting away or losing the attention. And I think
exactly.
it's important for online deliveries to keep engagement because that actually helps the learning process and the cognitive nature of training. And I think that makes it a key differentiator from lots of other training mediums where you tend to just watch videos and there's no engagement. Learning is quite low, engagement is quite low, the results,
Exactly.
have you learned anything, is quite low. So
And it's
that
boring.
makes, and it's boring. Sorry, you've summed up that whole sentence in one word. It becomes boring. I think that's the value that the online deliveries bring. But I also think you did mention it that if you're delivering the training, whether you're a trainer, an instructor, or an organization that's doing online delivery, I think you have to step back and look at how you're going to deliver a little bit differently than you've done in the classroom because
Yeah,
you've a different communication channel, different medium, and you gave us that really good tip there, piece of paper right in front of you, who's engaging, names across the top, and a tally of the scores. I think
exactly.
that's a really, really good tip. You said something earlier about challenges and some organizations kind of having a bit of fear or the unknown. if I was talking to them today, I think we've got to say we're in unprecedented times. It's time to be brave. And would you agree if I was to say, look, try something. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, move on. But try something, try it quick, see what you can do, get feedback from your customers. A lot of organizations are very forgiving at the moment. In fact, they're, what can you do for us? We know it's difficult, rather than,
Mhm.
oh, don't do something because you might fail. I think, especially in the learning space, that they're really receptive to what can you do that keeps our people engaged, can help them learn more. Please do something. Would you agree with that? That there's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
openness out there.
yeah, absolutely. And we practice actually what we preach, and one of the aspects that we teach is experimentation.
Oh
And
yeah,
you will make mistakes in
yes,
every experiment, but from every failure you learn.
yes.
And that's
And
also something that organizations should stimulate. Do responsible experiments. You
I
know,
think we
in,
need to do it today
yes,
in,
yeah,
in today's times. And I always say it's not a mistake if we learn from it. It's learning. So if you get
exactly.
something
Yeah.
wrong and you learn from it, forget about the mistake you've just learned. Now, Marcel, can I ask, all this digital transformation that's going on, has this current situation with COVID-19, global lockdown, all this change in how we work, has that impacted your view on the importance of digital transformation?
Um, Actually, not my personal own view, because I already was convinced about the necessity and the advantages.
Yes, indeed.
I think it was a driver for many organizations. It was simulating the move to working more digitally for many, many organizations. Actually, an hour back, I was thinking, what happened if COVID 19 was not COVID 19, but COVID 1995, for example, right? So in that time, we had computers, but the world was not as digital as it is right
Yes,
now.
yes.
So, what would have happened if we were dealing with a pandemic like this, but then 25 years back, or yeah, 25 years back? It was
We would.
an even bigger disaster, you
Yeah,
know? For
for COVID 19, sorry to interrupt, for COVID 1995, we would be having this conversation over a fax machine or at best a
yeah,
56K modem without graphics. It'd be
yes,
horrendous. Yeah,
yes,
I think yeah, I've heard that, and I think that's it's a valid point to say that, we're more connected now. Cloud has enabled a lot of this, which is really good. We have a lot
absolutely.
of tools. I think the case is, again, use some of these tools to get these results. Now that brings me on to an interesting question. Sorry, topic. A lot of organizations lately, especially in the training space, are using Zoom, Teams, Skype, you name it, whatever
Yeah.
type of communication tools. My perspective is that a lot of them have just started using tools, but what I call digital acquisition. They've acquired some digital tool to do something, but
Hmm.
they haven't necessarily done digital transformation, because to do the transformation piece, in my view, you've got to change how you do business somehow by using
Yeah.
digital technology. So are
Yeah.
you seeing, and I think there's a big gap there, that organizations are doing digital acquisition, but thinking they're doing digital transformation. Are you seeing that, and is there any impact from this?
You mean it is impacted due to COVID-19, you mean?
Well, just in general, I mean, if an organization thinks it's doing digital transformation, but all it's doing is getting digital tools like Teams.
Yeah.
Teams doesn't,
Yeah.
or Skype, Zoom, they don't change how you do business. They're a
Ah,
tool. You-
yeah. I think it highly depends on your business model. If COVID-19 impacted your main business in a very substantial way, then actually you are more or less forced to transform to a more digital environment. So maybe you are still in the same business, but because of COVID-19, you cannot do it physically anymore. You have to move to a more digital environment to stay in business.
Yes,
Or on
and they,
on the other hand, if you allow me, on the other hand, it can also force businesses to do not only their current business but in a digital way, but also to do business completely a completely different business.
yes,
So not
yes.
only their current business in a different way, but it also opened opportunities to start up new types of business due to the digital transformation.
That's very interesting. Yes, to do something new. I think earlier, going back to when you're talking about training organizations having to deliver virtual training a little bit differently than a classroom based. So I think if you acquire, say, Teams, Zoom, Skype, any of those tools,
Yeah,
and you also change, so that's digital acquisition, you get the tool. But if you're changing how you deliver to make it work with that new medium, I think that's part of that digital transformation process. And I think organizations need to recognize that and say that they've got the tools, they're changing how they're delivering services, and they should, reward themselves for that and say, look, we are transforming as best we can in the times that we can. But equally,
exactly.
there are so many businesses at the moment that are just getting digital tools and not changing what they're doing and how they're doing it, but thinking they're doing some form of transformation. I think they're the ones that are going to struggle over the coming year or 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. You have to make yourself familiar with these different tools that are out there to be able to stay in business.
Yes, yes,
If you don't, then it's game over after a certain period of time. You
yes,
know,
yes. Um,
Darwin already mentioned it a while ago. It are not the strongest species that are able to survive, but the species that are able to adapt, right?
the adaptable ones, absolutely. We're in times
Yeah,
that we need massive adaptation. Can I ask Marcel,
exactly.
what do you think are going to be one or two of the biggest changes in the training and learning and development industry in the coming 6 to 12 months?
um, I personally I expected that micro learning or learning experience tools or platforms
Yeah.
would have become more and more popular nowadays. But maybe yeah, what I see is that most of our, as far as I know, all of our partners, they want to return to business as usual as quickly as possible.
Right.
So within half a year time, all our partners, they hope that they can that they have normal traditional classroom deliveries, that they return to the normal classroom deliveries again. That's what I heard from all of our
Mm.
partners.
Okay, that's interesting. Again, that's a view of the world from the partners, which is great. I might, balance that with, I think one thing they might want to consider is, will their customers want to return to normal? Because there's always this confidence.
Yeah,
So if people are
yeah,
confident in their environment that COVID-19 has been suppressed, maybe they'll head back to training classrooms. But on the other side, we know people are, they fear risk, and if there's risk in the environment of catching this, they may look to stay away. And then we
yeah,
have the business risk. There's going to be a lot of businesses challenged from a cash perspective, a revenue perspective, a turnover, all these impacts, that if that business isn't there, maybe the classroom based, I don't know if it is, who knows, we don't know, but maybe there's some consideration there for the training partners to have a think about that and maybe
yeah,
use the time to look at their business model again, further digital acquisition, further digital transformation to be ready, because what you painted would be ideal, that it's back to business. There
yeah,
is a cohort there that is thinking that maybe it's not back to business, that we have to think of what a new environment looks like for the next 6, 12, even 2 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we have to see.
absolutely.
We have to
To be
see.
honest, yeah, to be honest, it's been quite a while that I have delivered classes for 16 to 24 people. That's over.
Yes. Yes.
Most of when I look to the recent couple of years that I delivered classroom courses, and most of the time it were 6 to 8,
Yes.
exceptionally once in a while 12.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when in an average amount of students, 6 to 8 in a normal classroom, then you should be able to apply the 1.5 meter distance policy, I guess. That should not be a big deal.
That's
And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because,
And
because
again, we don't
it
know.
was yeah, the course was already profitable for six, or for the partner, by having 6 to 8 delegates in the room,
Yes.
even 4. So that still can be profitable with the 1.5 meter distance policy. So I wonder if it is having a huge impact for the number of delegates that are allowed to enter a class.
Mm.
I think it doesn't make a big difference compared to before the COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, I guess it's consumer confidence and sentiment, but we won't know that
That
until
is true.
that'll be different for each country. But look, I
Yeah,
do hope it's returned to business as usual, but also I always like to have a plan B as well. So maybe we'll look at
yeah,
that. Now,
yeah.
Marcel, in finishing, I have a final question. It's the most important question of them all. What are you going to look forward to most of all when this is all over?
You want to have a business type of answer or a private type of answer?
Oh, Marcel, from yourself personally, what are you looking forward to?
What I want to look for is go out with my wife and enjoy a nice drink or a nice meal on a terrace in a nice on a nice location,
Fantastic.
and enjoy the restaurants and also when I give a business type of answer, I really miss the interaction with my delegates
Yes,
in the
yes,
physical classroom and helping my students to become better. That's what I
yes.
personally miss. Yes. Yeah,
Fantastic. So Nirvana for you when it's all over is to deliver a course, a classroom-based course, and then that evening meet your wife, have a bite to eat, drink on the terrace. Fantastic.
exactly. Yeah,
Sounds great. Marcel,
yeah.
we'll leave it there. Marcel Foederer, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll talk again
Okay.
soon. Thanks, Marcel.
Yeah. My pleasure. It was a pleasure. Thank you.